Hey, good morning, everyone. My name is Chris-Beth Cowie, and I'm the founder of Empowered Facts and the host of BizGrams. I'm super excited because today we have Fazeena with us here today, and she is the founder of the Conscious Communicator. Fazeena, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing well. Thank you, Chris-Beth. I'm really happy to be here.
Awesome. I'm excited because I remember the last time, I had you come and facilitate a workshop for a couple of youth that I was working with. And it was such a powerful and dynamic session, really helping people hone in on their voice and telling their stories, right? And so, Fazeena, how did you get started on your entrepreneurial journey?
So my entrepreneurial journey started in 2016. I left my government job in 2015, and I took some time off to figure out what I wanted to do. I was working for the province, an agency of the province, in corporate communications and public relations. And so I knew the next leg of my journey would be in communication because I've always loved it. And so the interesting thing is that as I started applying for jobs, I realized that it didn't feel right anymore. And I guess I got hit by the entrepreneurial bug, and decided to open my own business in 2016, where I was mainly consulting and doing writing for other entrepreneurs or people who had contracted me for jobs that they were doing. So that's how it started. And I don't think I really understood what it meant to be an entrepreneur at the time, because we know that there's quite a journey that goes on once you start out.
Hey, that is so powerful. And I think so many people can relate leaving that corporate job and saying, I'm ready for something different. I'm ready to be challenged in new ways. And it's really amazing to see that you were able to take some of the things that you were doing in your corporate world and translate it to serving your clients in your business as well. So tell us a little bit about what is it like working with you in your business? What are some of the products that you or services that you offer and the benefits of working with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So my business is called the Conscious Communicator, and I call it a whole holistic approach to communication. In our society, we are taught mainly that communication is all about words. So when I'm working with people, I'm adding a whole other dimension to what communication is all about. And I explore the conscious part of communication, but also the unconscious pieces that feed how we communicate. So I'm usually working with entrepreneurs or professionals who are trying to hone their communication skills, become more confident in the way that they work. And I do that through one-on-one coaching. I also do that through consulting with other businesses or organizations that want to have a more powerful approach to the way that they communicate, either with their employees or their clients. So when people work with me, I'm introducing them to this holistic approach where we're not only looking at the word part of it, but also other drivers to communication that include things like intention, that includes the patterns that we've created within our organizations or that we hold within ourselves as individuals, and how that plays out in the way we communicate, certain limiting beliefs we have about ourselves and the way that we can use our voices, or if we're allowed to use our voices, or the things that we tell ourselves that keep us quiet, and how we can break through those things so that we can be more powerful in the way that we use our voices in our businesses and in our organizations.
Hey, I think that is so powerful and, much needed, right? Because sometimes those unconscious things that we, the patterns, the habits that we have oftentimes limit us from really connecting with those that we're trying to serve as entrepreneurs. I think it is something that I'm guilty of is at times, oh, but the customer may not want that because I feel that way, right? But I'm not truly trying to break through and understand their needs and communicating from that vantage point. I know one of the things that you're really powerful, like talking about, is transcending barriers to use your voice in a powerful way, especially when it comes to the BIPOC experience. You want to talk to us a little bit about what that means and how does it look like when you're working with individuals?
Yeah, absolutely. It's being a woman of color, it's born out of my own experiences of living in this society and working in a corporate environment. And recognizing all the ways that I had embodied and internalized the messages of, my voice doesn't belong,
Mm.
right? And that my expertise isn't really expertise because, my role is more in the background than it is in the forefront or in a leadership position. And this is something that I work on a lot with BIPOC clients, is recognizing that we're worthy of being heard and that our voices have been missing, and that's what's been missing in leadership, in leadership in general, is that because we've been put to the background and silenced in a lot of cases. It's our knowledge, it's our expertise, it's our gifts that our society and our organizations and our communities are needing. So transcending those barriers is really about understanding how we've internalized those messages about not being worthy and not having a space and not having anything worth of knowing. And it's sad to say that, but that's a lot of the messages that we've received, growing up and just in existence as in our adult life. So when I'm working with my clients, it's really about helping them break through those pieces that we've embedded unconsciously, and then providing the practical steps and tools so that they are starting to feel safer, so that they can use their voices in more powerful and bigger ways.
Hey, and I think definitely much needed. Many entrepreneurs, I think, step into entrepreneurship and as a result of feeling excluded in the corporate spaces, and it's like, hey, I can't deal with this anymore. I'm gonna do it for myself, kind of vibe, and realizing at some point those same attitudes towards our own voice translates in our own businesses, right? Sometimes we're like, oh, I don't want to say too much, or kind of shying away from the limelight. But oftentimes when you start out as a solopreneur, it's your face, it's your voice that people see and hear first, especially if you're networking and making those connections. That is so needed. I think what you're doing is really powerful in the sense, working with those that are perhaps maybe currently employed, the professionals that are in those spaces, but also working with entrepreneurs to strengthen their voice. And the timing, I think, there's an awakening in our society for diverse voices. And so, employers and founders, if you are listening and looking, definitely know that you can get some support with Fazeena and, her team to help your voice shine. Yeah.
Absolutely. I it's really powerful what's happening right now. And I'm just grateful to see it happening and for us to be able to have these conversations that 18 months ago would still be really challenging to have, right? But in the last year it's really opened up, and people are engaging more in those conversations, so that BIPOC voices are being heard. And in addition to the diversity, it's also being able to create safe and inclusive spaces where people feel like they belong, and they have a space to use their voice and to be themselves. So those all go hand in hand in this awakening that's happening currently, and is going to grow. It's not going anywhere. It's only going to continue to grow.
Yes, I'm super excited because as a Black woman, I can tell you about some of my experiences as you were talking about, being in a workplace and you're like, am I worthy? Like feelings that I've had for my own self in my professional working experience. And it's like, oh, do I say something? I said something, but I didn't get recognized or didn't get heard. And so it's like, how do I navigate this? And I will say that, where places that I have worked in the later stages of my career, I feel like they are woke, if that I could use that word, like every voice matter around the table, right? And so being in a place where I feel like I am seen, I am heard for who I am and the value that I'm bringing to the table is so comforting. It's so like the way that the world should be, right?
Absolutely.
Versus trying to feel like, oh, I gotta fight for my rights in this place, right? While I'm trying to earn some money. It's not healthy at all. So I love what you're fostering in terms of those confidence building and really inclusive spaces, as you talked about it as well. So tell us a little bit about your entrepreneurial journey. What have been some of the challenges you've encountered over the time? And what are some of the lessons that you've learned or currently learning or going through that you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, so where do you begin with that? The entrepreneurial journey there's nothing like it. It's one of those things that you start out and you think like, okay, I have a skill or I have a product and I'm just going to market it and then people are going to come, right? And then you quickly recognize that that's not how it works. And there's an entire becoming the entrepreneur that has to happen, and the unlearning of the programming of what 9 to 5 was all about, right? Because from my own experience of coming from that 9 to 5 environment, like everything is scheduled for you. Like exactly when you're going in the office, when projects are due, what you're working on, when you're being evaluated. Like all of those things we don't realize are actually programmed into us because we've been doing them for years. So when you come out of that, and in my own experience, when I came out of that and then started my entrepreneurial journey, it was like this huge shock to my system and everything, where it was like, now I have to unlearn that because I don't have anybody creating that structure for myself anymore. I have to create that structure. I have to find that self-discipline. I have to find the confidence in myself to know that I have something that is worthy of putting out into the world and helping people with. So the biggest lessons for me was definitely unlearning all of that old stuff and then working through and coming face to face with all of the insecurities that I had about myself, all of my questions about worth, with respect to what I was putting out into the world in terms of my service offerings, but also in the conversation around money and charging the value of what I was offering. That's a huge one. And especially I find as a woman of color as well, something that I've had to work through in recognizing that value and charging the value of what I offer. So I would say things around worth and around working through insecurities were like the biggest pieces for myself. And then knowing that at the end of the day, my biggest competition is always myself and the doubts that come into my mind. And even when you're having like the best month or the best period of business, those things creep in because, as an entrepreneur, you're always growing. You're always growing. And when we hit that top part of the comfort zone and we're ready to stretch further and go beyond that, that's when those doubts or those old stories come up to try to, kind of sway us away or sabotage us from getting into further growth. So that's an ongoing thing. I'm truly grateful for this journey because I've learned so much about myself. I've learned so much about others. I've learned so much about community and how important that is when you're an entrepreneur, because it can get lonely at times. You don't have the benefit of being, in an office environment where you're seeing people all of the time. Sometimes you're in your basement or you're alone in a room. And I've really found environments, networking, of course, but also co-working spaces that have really helped me to be engaged with others. And I hear similar stories, of course, with other entrepreneurs as well.